Well, welcome everyone. I know we're all weather aware today, and so if anyone needs to drop off of this call, we certainly understand that. If we get the sirens here, I will be dropping off of this call too, but I will give you a heads up when I do. But I do want to welcome everyone to CareerTech's continuing series of panel discussions on what we call industry trends and employment opportunities. Now, our focus today is on a sector of our economy that is constantly evolving to meet consumer demand. And that, of course, is the automotive industry. But in order to continue to thrive, industry leaders say America's auto industry needs a workforce whose skills are also constantly evolving. I'm Rob McClendon. I'll be leading today's discussion with a group of panelists I think you will find both interesting and insightful. Now, Brian Vance is the operations manager for Tulsa Jaguar Land Rover. Brent Campbell serves as the fixed operation manager at Bob Moore Buick GMC in Oklahoma City. Kristen Battaglia is director of strategic partnerships for Wrenchway. Now, representing the Fowler Automotive Group is Jonathan Fowler. And our final panelist this afternoon is John Hill from Audi Tulsa. Thanks each of you for being here. Now, I'd like to begin today with the same question for everyone. And I think that's always a good place to start because how people can envision how they can get there too. And I want to hear your pathway story, both personally and professionally. And if I can I just go ahead and start with you, Jonathan?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So how did you get to where you are right
now? I got my PhD. It stands for Papa Had a Dealership. So I was born and raised into it, man. My father was in the business his entire career, just about. My grandfather started selling cars in Dallas, Texas in the late 1950s. And he got his first start with a Toyota store here in Norman, Oklahoma in 1973. So I now have the honor of being able to run day-to-day operations as president of the company. And I started in my early teens, probably about the time I was about 13 years old in our parts and service departments, shipping and receiving. So came up in parts, then service, did some time in accounting, and then I made the flip to variable operations and started doing sales through management and ran my first dealership back in 2010 when we opened Fowler Volkswagen down in Norman, and ran that for several years before I came back to corporate. So I've sat in a chair at least a little bit, every chair in a dealership at one point or another. I'm not very good at any of them, but I know a little bit about them.
Well, Kristen, how did your interest in the auto industry develop?
Yeah, so similar to Jonathan, I was raised in the industry. My dad's family had 2 car dealerships upstate New York, and kind of grew up being raised and seeing all those things, and then worked for Skills USA doing fundraising and partnerships, then worked for ASE helping schools get accredited, then went over to the iCar Foundation and doing more fundraising, and now I'm with Wrenchway.
Okay. Brent, how about you? What was your motivation to enter the good old automotive world?
Oh, I just needed a job for the most part. I graduated in 1998, went to school at OU. I thought I was going to be a dentist, and ended up working at a car dealership as a lot porter. And while I was going to college, whenever I was finished with college, I got an opportunity to go sell cars for a little bit, just kind of fell in love with it. Then flipped over to being a service advisor, and then moved my way up to being a manager. And I think I managed about 4 or 5 of our stores as a service manager and a fixed operations manager. And just that's about it, really. I mean, that's just something I just fell in love with and just stuck with.
Well, let's hear from the Tulsa folks. Brian, how did your career develop?
Kind of a recurring theme here, although my dad was a mechanic at a independent garage. And I was always that kid as a teenager that would bring in some old car that I bought, trying to get it to run faster and better. Got into sales at a fairly early age after college, and just fell in love with the business, and have had a number of positions over the years. And now I'm enjoying life at a Jaguar Land Rover store.
Good. And finally, John Hill from Audi Tulsa. How about you?
After graduating college at UT Arlington, and then going to flight school and becoming a flight instructor and airline transport pilot, once the kids came, I figured out, well, you can be a pilot or you can be a dad, but you can't be both. So I chose to be a dad, and took my finance skills and management skills I learned in school, and found this thing called Lexus, which was a startup at the time, and kind of worked out okay from there.
Quite commendable. Yeah. So now that we know where everyone is coming from, I'd like to hear everyone's insights on just a variety of trends and opportunities that are available in the auto industry. And I'd like to start off with just the most simple question I can ask is, why should someone consider a career in automotive? And Jonathan, you did a great job starting us off, so I'll let you do it again.
John did end up, he just got in. So we did have one more panelist.
Yes, and I do want to introduce, before we start on those questions, Mr. John Tostanowski, who is with the Ford Motor Company. So John, if you can hear me, how did you get in? How did your interest, what was your career pathway to coming to work for Ford?
Hope you guys can hear me. Correct.
Can.
Awesome. So my name is John. I'm in charge of all of our technician training and recruiting programs across the central market area with Ford. I started out as an automotive technician, actually. I worked in a shop, sweeping floors in a body shop, and then started working on the lube rack, and then graduated high school and figured out that I needed to do something with my life. So I went to a 2-year automotive program, got an associate's degree, worked as a technician full-time for a number of years, and then I just transitioned myself into going to school to get my bachelor's. And eventually, once I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I had an opportunity to move to the Detroit area, and then transitioned into a job with Ford on our corporate side of the business. And since then, I've lived in a lot of different places for Ford, but it's been a really good career path, and the industry's been really good to me, and I like to share that with others.
All right. Well, welcome to our panel. So Jonathan, my first question again to you, why should someone consider a career in automotive?
I think now is the best time to consider a career in automotive, honestly. It was great when my grandfather got into it back in the 50s and 60s, but it's even better now, I feel like. And when you look at why, I mean, the product continues to evolve. It continues to involve more electronic features that are able to, tune into your cell phone in your pocket. It's able to plug into your home devices that you've got in your home household. There are things that cars can do now with EVs coming along the line, where there's going to be a complete generational shift. And it's really a unique time that people can get into the business and really have one foot in kind of the past of where it's been, but also a foot in the future of where it's going. And then beyond that, there's truly something for everyone. If you're into banking and finance department's a great place to learn a lot about that. If you like talking to people, no better place than a service driver or sales floor. You get to talk to a lot of people all day long. If you don't want to talk to somebody, but you love working with your hands, you can go be a technician. You can go work back in the parts warehouse. So there's truly something for everyone. It can afford a great lifestyle, a great quality of life for your family, or for yourself and your friends. And it's been good to my family and myself and our team. And it's something I'm very eager and always open to talk about with anybody that's interested.
All right, let's hear from John Hill at the Audi store in Tulsa.
No, I agree with Jonathan. The best time to get in is really now. There's a variety of reasons. We're seeing a paradigm shift in the business like we've never seen before. So when you're moving from internal combustion to the electric world, we need a skill set that frankly doesn't exist. So anybody who really throws their hat in the ring is willing to go to school and learn can be gainfully employed, and there's not a lot of competition right now. And it's really kind of exciting. I would liken it to propeller manufacturers and servicers at the dawn of the jet age. So we need a whole new set of skills. But also there's such a variety of skills that are going to be needed. I mean, between the technicians, obviously, where that's really an electrician's job today, as much as it is a technician job. What's going to be needed on the sales side of the business is evolving rapidly as you look at entrants like Carvana, Vroom, and consumer direct models. So it's really a wide open field for anybody who's just willing to put in the time and make an effort.
I love the umbrella reference. I think I'll have to borrow that analogy. Anyone else have anything to add? Brian, how about you?
Yeah, completely agree with what everybody said. I would also add, I think there's such a range of opportunity here. You could start in, specific to this conversation as a technician. You can be stay as a technician. If you love it, you can advance and get better and better at the craft. Or you can move into a management role if you wanted to, you found that leading people was something that was a passion of yours. But it's beyond just the retail automotive. There's racing teams. There's just so many different options for somebody that starts this way. You find what interests you and what motivates you, and then you just follow that path. And it's always interesting to see how that leads people.
Hey, Brent, I want to hear your opinion on this, because you did start out a little bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think why would someone consider automotive career is, to me, it's ever changing. It's something different every single day. And like these other guys are saying as well too, it is a very good time to get in the business, because you are going to come into it on the ground level of something that we've never seen before. This, the EV, we kind of really don't know what to expect on the service side of it. I think it's going to be all right. I think everything's going to evolve to a different level of how we fix vehicles, how we work on them, even to what our shops even look like. And if you get in on that ground level, you're going to be extremely valuable, because like I said, the internal combustion engines, 10, 15 years, they're going to be gone. And those guys, that skill set, they're going to have to relearn it all. If you come in on the ground level and that's all you know, you're going to be at the top of your game and be worth a mint.
Yeah.
Robert, I think what Brent's talking about is a great example of perceptions of our industry sometimes and how they change, right? So for years, there's been discussion of EVs coming online and how that's going to actually hurt service departments in terms of the amount of business that they might do. Because if there's no engine, you're not working on an engine, you're not changing oil, it's different, right? Well, there's actually one of the first studies of its kind in our industry recently came out, I think in the last 30 days. It showed the cost of maintenance on EVs is lower. That's actually factual. The cost of maintaining and the maintenance of an EV is lower on the quick moving stuff, because you don't have those oil changes. But the total cost of repair over the lifetime of ownership is actually higher. And it ties directly into the electronics, the computer systems, the wiring harnesses, the battery packs, everything that goes into them. And so the cost of repairing is actually up significantly more in some areas. The cost of maintenance is down in some areas. And it's working out to where the revenue pound for pound is actually not that dissimilar compared to what some fears were. And so when you look at the gas savings on the consumer side, not only are they getting a vehicle that is comparable to the cost of maintaining and repairing that they're used to on the whole, but they're getting that fuel savings. And that's why it's a really exciting time to get in the business, because we don't even know a lot of what's coming entirely. A lot of this hasn't been tested out yet. And with Ford releasing exciting products, with Volkswagen, with all these great manufacturers that we all represent, Audi with the e-tron, you can see these things coming along now that over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's really going to change the landscape. And it's really going to be a lot of fun. And when there is that much unknown ahead, I think it opens a lot of opportunity for people who are getting in now to really have a true career path, because we're all back to the equal level playing field. We're all learning together as EVs roll out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great points. Great points. I do have to follow up with that one. Are EV vehicles, are they heavier than the typical gas powered cars?
Yes.
Because of the batteries?
You take that one?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. They are a bit heavier. But the reality is that technology is moving so fast, it's hard to say how long they'll stay that way. Because every year we wake up and there's something, every day we wake up, there's something new coming. So EVs is the part of the story that's really unfolding as we're having this conversation. But when you look at mobility as a service, and when you look at autonomy, I mean, there's a whole new transportation paradigm coming down that Jonathan spoke well to, that we really can't foretell completely right now, but it's coming, and we're going to need skill sets that frankly are not widely available in the marketplace right now.
And that's where Brian and Brent and John and myself, we're speaking heavily from a dealer side in terms of the auto industry and getting in. The truth is the manufacturer side that John Tostanowski is on, with the changes in EV that's going on at the OEMs. And when you look at what they're doing for research and development, their production, what they're having to do at retooling plants, it's opening up a completely different set of jobs in those areas as well. Just
Okay.
look at the supply chain as well. I mean, what we're going on with the chip shortage today, and they're talking about 7 to 10 additional plants coming online over the next 5 to 10 years. Those are thousands of jobs, and those are highly skilled labor positions. And the states that are able to compete for those types of jobs and get those plants and get that manufacturing in their state, which Oklahoma, by the way, has the best career technical system in the country to actually supply that, the better off we're all going to be.
So John Tostanowski, jump in here. Tell us from the manufacturer side, why should someone consider a career in automotive?
From the manufacturer side, I think it's been said earlier that it's just a very exciting time to be in the industry. And I'll speak a little bit more on electrification, not to overspeak on the subject, but it's something that we seemingly can't ignore. By 2030, 40% of our overall vehicle mix will be EVs. So that basically means that, and what we're all predicting that it will look like is pretty much every vehicle that is made will have an electric only option. That doesn't mean that gas, diesel, and hybrid options are going away, but pretty much on every platform, you're going to see an electric vehicle. We've introduced that on the Mustang platform. We have the Mach-E. It now was recently introduced just last week. On the F-150, there's going to be F-150 Lightning, which is an all-electric F-150. So the vehicle mix is changing rapidly, and it's just really exciting, right? Those vehicles have a lot of features that internal combustion engine vehicles don't have, right? You have instantaneous torque, and you have, kind of quiet cruising modes. Electric vehicles open up the opportunity for autonomous vehicles to be a more easier thing to get to, because they can brake for the most part with programming in the system. They can brake on their own, right? We have something called one pedal driving, where regenerative braking takes over most of the braking function on a vehicle. So it's a snowball effect into other technologies. And I would say the other really exciting thing for anybody that wants to be an engineer or a technician or anyone inside of the automotive space, this generation entering the workforce is going to be the first generation that finds it normal to drive and work on or design and engineer electric vehicles. Previous generations, it's an uncomfortable subject for them. If you're a young person entering the career today, you are an absolute pioneer, and you're going to be the first generation that finds it an everyday normal practice to work on this very cutting edge technology that we're all finding as a normal thing nowadays.
Okay. Kristen, I didn't forget about you. I just had to figure out how to pronounce your last name.
Well,
you have anything to add?
My internet, again, it keeps on gets out. But so I have a little bit of a different take because I'm not kind of right in the trenches like you all are. But I just think it's the automotive industry, one, we've already touched upon, has so many opportunities, but it's such an awesome supportive network that, I mean, everybody is kind of working towards the same end goal, right? And, supporting technicians, getting more students into these programs, and then having them be qualified entry-level techs. Everybody's talking about it, and everybody wants to do the right thing. So that warms my heart. That's what I'm super passionate about.
Okay. All right, good. Well, Brian, I'm going to have you lead us off on our next one, and we're going to start talking about money. What's the pay range for some of these high skill, high demand jobs?
Yes, I think you're going to find a very wide range here. Entry level, somebody coming out of a technical program with a little bit of maybe internship type experience. I think we probably expect give or take some probably around a $40,000 range coming into it. So, a good living wage that I'll bet a lot of four-year college grads would be pretty happy with these days. But, on the top end of it, I mean, it's well into the six figures, depending on the type of background you have, your certifications, if you're working on heavy line diesel vehicles, if you have electric certifications, there's a ton of opportunity for somebody that develops those really good skills and continues to advance over the years.
Okay. John Hill, anything different?
No, I think Brian summarized it properly. Candidly, 40,000 is a easy enough wage for us to employ someone with, particularly in the shop. We're pretty fortunate if we can get them there. But we have six figures being paid at our shop today. So it just depends on what you can do and how quickly you can learn the new skills that we're bringing on.
Okay. Kristen, big picture, what pay scales do you see, even nationally?
Oh, well, I can't really comment on pay scales. That's not my jam. But
Okay.
what I can comment on is retention, right? And so maybe I'm taking us down another path, but ASE came out with a study a couple of years ago that we lose 42% of entry-level technicians within 2 years. And that's a scary number. So again, I might be taking you down the wrong path. I'm not the expert on pay levels and what everybody gets paid, but definitely retention and such is something that is kind of in addition to the pay scale.
I think that's fascinating, and I think it's very important, and I'm going to follow up with you. So if you are losing 42%, what are some of the attributing factors? Is it the pay? Is it work conditions? What is it?
So, I mean, I think in any industry, we don't really stay because of pay necessarily, right? I mean, it has more to do with, have you been met expectations? So I think a lot of times we throw entry-level techs into a situation without setting reasonable expectations of what they should be performing and know how to do and the knowledge. And then it's mentoring. And I think those are the two biggest issues that our industry really, really struggles with.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in either on pay or retention? I think both of those are related.
I think Kristen had some excellent points. I think it's not pay that people stay for. It's all of the above and how they feel valued in the whole as a person, as an employee. So I think part of the attrition rate that Kristen's speaking to, which we've been dealing with as an industry for some time, but it is getting worse, is exactly what she's hitting on. Is a lot of the students coming out are leaving at faster rates. And I think some of that, if you look at some dealerships that haven't air conditioned their shop, it was very common 20, 30, 40 years ago to not have air conditioning in a shop. Well, in Oklahoma, in a 100-degree day, your shop can get into 80 degrees. You're busting your knuckles on hot oil, right? That's not a fun place to work. So that's where you've seen dealers over the last 10, 20 years either be forced by manufacturers or take it upon themselves to actually install fans, air conditioning, to go back and retrofit a lot of these things and just make it a more comfortable environment to work. And then when you look at the technology of the vehicles, some of the vehicles we're starting to sell, and as John said, 30 to 40% here in the not too distant future, they don't have oil. There's no hot oil to touch anymore. So the technician standpoints evolved tremendously, as well as the perception. I think people, I don't think, understood how much money a technician could make at one point in time. And to John's point, a six-figure technician is not an uncommon thing today. That's something that I would probably venture to say all of our stores could say that they have that, and probably more than one today, because it's that high demand. There is that much work out there. And when you look at the attrition rates that Kristen is speaking to, if we're losing techs at a faster rate than we're bringing them in, but the actual number of vehicles to be worked on is going up, the piece of the pie is getting bigger on a per tech portion. The other thing I'll say to pay is, and Brian hit on this, it is a wide range. People that don't know the business at all can get in. Oklahoma, we've raised our employee minimum wage to $12 an hour. We're moving that to $15 an hour over the next several years. And in Oklahoma, that's over a living wage. And that's actually class leading, I believe, for our industry. We represent in Colorado, the wages up there in that market are actually higher. So we've been really working hard as a company ourselves to raise that bottom wage up to attract people who aren't just looking for an hourly job and a paycheck, but something that they see as a better than starting wage at some of the other places they could go around the markets that we serve, with the added bonus of we're going to train. We will pay for you to go to career technical school. We will pay for you to go to out-of-state training with a world-class company like Ford Motor Company in Dallas, Texas, where you're going to get to work and meet with people like John and all of his team. when you offer those types of things, as well as the fact that we actually have tool benefits where we're providing tools, those are some great things that you can be able to do to get somebody into an entry hour level position and work them into a position over a career to where they can earn six figures. And these can be people that have college degrees. In Brent's case, as he's talked about and worked his way into management, these could be people like my grandfather that barely graduated high school and were able to work their way into an industry where anybody from any background can truly get in. And if you're willing to put in the work, you can truly make something of it. And just the culture and the quality of the industry has changed so much over the last 30 to 50 years. It truly is a fun and exciting industry to work in, I believe.
Yeah, Brent, I do want to hear your perspective on this. You've been doing this for 23 years. You've been moving up. What about pay and retention?
On the service side of it, the retention, I believe, is really quite high in most of your service departments that I'm aware of. The pay, it's just like everyone else says. I think Jonathan, he hit the nail on the head. Is the really neat thing about this job is it is equal employment opportunity. I mean, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. The technician, and for example, that wants to stay a little bit late and finish a job so he can start early, fresh in the morning, that guy, he does quite well for himself. The pay range is same. You can be at the $40,000 mark, and it's several people in the six-figure range. And then like Jonathan was saying, in almost every dealership that I know of, there's at least one, maybe two or three. And the same thing with the service advisors, the guys that have the gift of gab, that can talk and they can learn his skill. And there's the same situation. The more they put into it, the more they get out of it. And so it's again, like it's a reoccurring theme. It's an exciting, fun industry to get into. I just got my little nephew into it. He's working at our Mazda store as a loop tech. I would never suggest for him to be there if I didn't have a lot of faith in this business and the opportunity that he can have. So pay wise, I've always told people it's one of the best kept secrets around is of what you can make in the automotive business.
Hey, John from Ford, you want to jump in here from a manufacturer side?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, obviously from the manufacturer's perspective, you're going to see a wide variation in terms of pay scales. But, the reality is those pay scales are coordinated to your skill level. So the one great thing about this career and this industry is as you develop in skill, you're going to be compensated, better. So you start out making $35,000, $40,000 a year, but it's not uncommon for somebody who has 5 to 10 years of experience to be making over $100,000 a year. So let's put that into perspective. What other careers are out there where you get to write your own destiny? Because if you want to be better, if you want to improve your skills, if you want to go to, at Ford, we had something called a Ford Asset Program, or if you want to, take your training courses online and have your dealer sign you up to get into the training center, it's on you as a technician to be able to perform those duties and then gain your skill set at a greater level. And then that automatically gives you more pay, right? You're being rewarded because you're more proficient and you're more highly skilled. Also, your pay per hour that you turn is going to naturally go up as well, because the dealers recognize that you have more skill. So you might start out at a certain level, but there are a few other careers and industries out there. Within 5 to 10 years, you get to write your own destiny from 40 grand a year to 100 grand a year. And by the way, in larger markets, I don't want to jinx myself, but we have technicians that are maybe 15 years in the industry and they're making $250,000 a year. I said that correctly, $225,000 a year. So, if you really want to be the best, now granted, those are folks that come in, they get to the shop at 7 a.m. and they might leave at 6 p.m. or 6:30 or 7 p.m. But they're writing their own destiny. There's a lot of other careers out there where you may make the same amount of money for 5 or 10 years, right? And no matter how much more experience you have, it takes 5 to 10 years for you to get that next bump. This career doesn't work that way. So you may start here, but very quickly you can find yourself up here. And I think the best part is you're writing your own destiny. As you get better, and if you want to get better, you're not limited by anything. You're the one that creates your skill set, and you're the one that creates your higher levels of pay.
So each of you have kind of hit on my next question a bit, but I do want to ask it. Let's talk about the outlook for growth in the auto sector. And John, you're on a roll. You want to keep going, Mr. Tustanovsky?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the outlook for growth. Let's talk about sales first, right? I'll talk about two things: sales and service, to kind of keep it simple, because there's other things that go into growth in the auto industry. Things like transportation as a service. That's basically autonomous technology, where we're going to see certain vehicles driving around with autonomous technology delivering services to us. That's a reality that we will see shortly. But let's just keep it simple at sales and service. So sales, right now we're in a microchip shortage. So that means service is being impacted. It's hard for people to buy new cars. It's hard for us to provide new vehicles. Dealer inventories have shrunk. So what's going to happen is, over the course of the next year, we will see a huge spike in new car sales as soon as the vehicles are available. So that means there's going to be a lot of vehicles. People are going to be buying tons of cars as soon as they're available, right? But in the meantime, service is going to spike, because those cars that they can't buy, if there's something wrong with it, they're going to need to get it serviced because they can't buy a new one. Typically, if there's a big problem with a vehicle, somebody might say, "Oh, I don't want to fix it. Let me just buy a new car." Hard to do that today. But in about a year or a year and a half, the market is going to be flooded with new vehicles that people have just bought because they've been saving their pennies and waiting to buy them. They've also serviced them in the meantime. So now there's going to be a huge spike in car sales, which we predict, and I think a lot of other OEMs agree. Once we see that spike in car sales, guess what? There's a lot of new cars on the market, and those cars are going to need to be serviced. So the growth is just exponential. One thing that seems like a problem is now turning into a solution for the other, and it's just going to make the market expand and grow for the automotive industry overall.
So I am curious, what does that mean for the local dealers? Anybody want to jump in here?
John hit the nail on the head. I mean, what we're experiencing is what he is saying. So to put it in some real numbers, the industry total new cars sold in the United States was approaching 17 plus million units. We right now, because of COVID plant closures last year and now the chip shortage that we find ourselves in, there are millions of cars not being produced across all manufacturers right now. And so we used to carry a 2.5 to maybe a 3.5 or 4 month supply of inventory, depending on what manufacturer you were talking about for sales. So that could be anywhere from 60, 75, maybe 120 days worth of inventory, and there were some dealers who didn't think they had enough when they were at that. You're seeing the best production right now for dealers on a manufacturer basis. There are some manufacturers that right now have a 45-day supply of inventory, and that's the best case scenario. Some manufacturers are all the way down to a 16, 17, 18 days supply of inventory, and that's unheard of. And what that manifests and actually looks like in real practice is a truckload of cars, and it's not even a truckload right now, it's a partial truckload, is going to show up at Brent Campbell's store. Brent and his team are going to get those cars off the truck, however many they are. They're going to plug them into the machine in the service department that turns them on, rip the plastic off as fast as they can, wash it and vacuum it. And then the customer's probably already at the store ready to take delivery, and they've probably been waiting for some period of 2 to 4 weeks. We used to not pre-sale our inventory at really any substantial percentage level period. Right now, Fowler Automotive Group, just speaking for our company alone, and we're not doing a very good job of it compared to some of our competitors, we're at 20 to 25% of the inventory that has not even gotten to across the board is already sold. It's spoken for. And so to John's point, the inventory shortages that we're experiencing, along with all of this pent up demand for the last year and a half of COVID and lockdowns beginning to end and mask mandates beginning to come to a close and businesses being able to host more people in their business, every industry is competing for skilled labor and workers right now. And the demand is spiking the roof. And with cars not available for new cars, used car prices have gone up because there is a shortage of used cars available. And as John Ostanovsky said, it's putting a tremendous pressure on revenue and throughput on our service departments. And we can't hire technicians fast enough. I could, in this company just alone today, we currently have 149 technicians in Fowler Automotive Group. And on top of that, we have probably 30 students from career technical institutes that are mentoring within our organization right now. On top of that, I'd take another 20 career tech students and another 30 technicians right now and could hire them today. We cannot get them in the door fast enough.
I want to know if that's any different for the folks from Tulsa, Jaguar Land Rover, Audi, either of those?
No, actually, I couldn't agree more with John or Jonathan. They've said it perfectly. You know, as we look at this human capital question, though, something to consider for a panel like this is over the last couple of decades, we've had people, a lot of our kids are of the belief that if you didn't go to college, you couldn't go anywhere. And so we have piled student loan debt on these kids in a way that we should never have done. But the consequence of that is we have a shortage of this labor capital that we need for the trades that we have in this industry. So the group in this panel really has an opportunity now. As you look at these kids at home without a job with big student loan debt, they could re-enter the market. We'll train them. We'll pay them to train. And we don't mind bringing them along to help them make $100,000. So there's a real opportunity to tap into this market, particularly the millennials who really got hosed after the financial crisis. And, you know, we can employ these people today if they're willing to work, and we'll supply the education.
Anyone else want to jump in? Well, not hearing any takers, I will go ahead and move on to my next subject matter. And this is where you get to talk to not only the educator, but the students. So what is needed for someone to enter the automotive field? And Brent, you started from the bottom up. Tell us what you need.
Really, the what I see is it's just work ethic. You know, wanting to improve yourself, wanting something more for yourself. You can go as far as you want in this field, and there's so many different avenues, so many different directions you can go. I mean, what other job are out there that you can go and we want you to be as successful as possible? It's our goal just to do nothing but to make you the best version of you that you can be, and we'll pay you to do it, and we'll pay you to educate you. And in some cases, some manufacturers will even pay for your college to do something else. You know, I worked with Chrysler for about 8 years, and they had a program that they would pay for your college tuition. You know, it's one of the, like I say, it's a very well, I often say, a best kept secret. There's no other job out there that is the high demand, just like what Jonathan was saying. You know, I'm with a group that has 14 stores, and I don't know how many technicians or managers I have that we're on an email chain that say, hey, I'm looking for an advisor. I'm looking for a technician, a lot porter, a detailer. I mean, we have people that wash cars that make more than school teachers sometimes. You know, it's a very good job to be into. And like I said, we'll pay you to do it. We'll pay you to get better, you know? And so it's a very good field to be in. And I can't, you know, recommend it more. And so as far as what you need, again, it's just work ethic, drive, and just, you want to improve yourself and having a little bit of a serving heart, wanting to help other people, wanting to be someone's hero. Because I always tell my guys, you're a hero because you're fixing someone's car. You're a hero because you're connecting them with a new car. You know, you're helping people get what they need. And that's why this job will always be here. And that's why, you know, all you need is just attitude and work ethic. That's
okay,
it.
so we heard work ethic, initiative, and the ability to work with a customer. What do we need to be doing in the classroom? Jonathan Fowler, I see you nodding. What do you think needs to happen in the classroom?
Y'all are doing it. I mean, I feel so fortunate to have the partnerships we have with CareerTech, and I'll use one example of many that I could use on this to illustrate this partnership and how important it is to us. Our service manager here at our Honda store in Norman, Tim Irwin, he's a graduate of Career Technical Institute here in Oklahoma. He came out of that. He rose through the ranks of technician into service advisor, into manager in our Honda store here in Norman, Oklahoma. And then he strikes up a relationship because he needs technicians with a gentleman who is well known in career tech and well loved by Fowler Automotive, Mr. Lee Dow. And so Mr. Lee Dow here at Moore Norman Technology Center has worked with Tim Irwin for years. And now our shops here in Norman at our Toyota store, our Volkswagen store, and our Honda store, every single one of them, I believe, is over 50% of the entire technician workforce has been bred out of career technical institutes in the state of Oklahoma. We're really proud of that. The way that Lee has done that, Lee has communicated with the dealers. In the summertime, he goes home a little bit, but he comes to our shops and he visits us and he says hello. Because he does that and he puts that type of time into the relationships with the dealers and the service managers, he knows what each store's culture is all about. Lee Dow can tell you anything you want to know about any car dealer in this area. And if you call and ask him, because of that, he knows what student may or may not fit. He knows the person. He knows the student is a whole person. He knows the dealer. And because of that, his placement rates are higher. He knows who's a good fit for what organization. He knows if there's an organization that is really good at taking people that aren't sure of themselves and lack confidence. And there's a dealer out there that can afford to take on a tech that isn't going to be overloaded with work that they don't know how to do yet. And they're going to have time to really go down that runway and learn. He knows there's some stores that are slammed to the wall. They need somebody with a better experience that can take on the stress of having 100+ hours of pay period thrown at them right off the bat. And he's great at that. And when you look at why he's great at that, it's because Lee loves the industry. He's passionate about it. He truly loves cars. He loves people. He loves his students, and he'd do anything for them. And he's an example of that. And when you look at Lee now taking on his new position as, I believe, Director of Transportation Services now at Moore Norman Technology Center, and you look at the people that have followed in his footsteps to take on the automotive technology services side and the instructors they've brought in, talk about reloading your bench strength. I mean, that's the prime example of how it should go down. And again, Moore Norman Technology Center, I'm talking about because it's about 5 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, and it's easy to talk about. Y'all have got examples like that across the state. And that's why this partnership is so important. That's why it's worked for us. That's why it's worked at Moore Norman. That's exactly why Oklahoma Career Tech is a national standard bearer for these types of programs, especially in automotive services. And it's why it's easy for us to support. And that's why we try and recruit student technicians, whether they're adults or whether they're fresh out of high school, to come and work for us, is because we know if they've already taken the initiative to apply to get into your programs, they've been able to show up on time, they've been able to complete the work. That's better than any interview I can put them through. They've already interviewed for my company just by the fact they've gotten to your program and y'all vouch for them when they graduate. That's enough for me.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Kristen, that makes me think of Skills USA. I know that's a previous employer. Do you have something to add here?
Well, just kind of reiterating what everybody else already said. I've talked, and this goes for all skilled trades, but technical skills can be taught, right? It's the interpersonal, it's this, I hate the phrase soft skills, but it's showing up to work on time, looking your boss or employer in the eye, not looking at your cell phone. So, that I always hear. Right. But then to Jonathan's point, it really is a partnership. Right. And so it has to work for the school, for the class shop, and for the dealer or the shop. And it can't just be kind of a one-way street. Right. And so it takes time to develop those relationships. But once you do, you build your bench pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Tostanovsky, any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in terms of what it takes to be successful in any industry applies to this industry. And it's pretty much 3 core things: show up to work on time, have a good attitude, and be eager to learn. And it falls into this. We hire at Ford Motor Company, we hire character. We don't hire skill sets. we can coach you to the technical. And I think that's representative, or at least should be representative of the industry overall, whether you're going to a supplier, a manufacturer, a distributor, a dealership to work as a salesperson, a technician, whatever it may be. The best employers out there should and probably do recognize that, especially at the entry level, we're not looking for you to have a lot of skill sets. We're looking for you to show up to work on time, have a good attitude, and be eager to learn, because we want you to have character. If you can, like Kristen might have said, put the phone away. If you can be attentive, all of those things. If you ask your boss, hey boss, what do you need me to do next? Those things are the most important, because the key thing is we're looking for character. Don't worry about the technical. We can train you to that. In terms of the schools, I would say, at some of the more earlier educational levels, we're looking for people, and I think dealers are looking for people that know basic functions. There seems to be, and there was in the past, a big push towards learning everything electrical and learning everything on transmissions and learning everything on diesel engines and gas engines. Really what a good entry-level technician needs is, do I know how to rack a car? Do I know how to perform a tire rotation? Do I know how to change tires, oil changes? A little bit of the electrical is necessary, but a lot of that stuff we're going to learn either in the shop or in one of our college level programs. Around the wheel, lube oil filter, all of those things are essential at the secondary level. The post-secondary level, that's where we get into the meat and potatoes, and that's where technicians are prepared to be future senior masters. So I would say for all technicians or anybody that wants to enter the industry on that side, it's important to do your college. It's also important to do your high school, because you're going to build your foundation in high school. Then you're just going to get even better in college. And guess what? That's going to make you more employable. And maybe if that's not the path you want to go, the good thing about the automotive industry is there's no OEM out there that doesn't offer training for their technicians. So we'll coach you if you need to be coached. We'll train you if you need to be trained, because you came right to us. So it's a win-win.
So Brian and John Hill in Tulsa, anything different with Jaguar Land Rover and Audi?
Go ahead, Brian.
No, a lot of the same comments there. I think one of the questions was what do we need to do in the classroom?
Right.
And when I look at classroom learning, one of the things that when you look at people that maybe have struggled a little bit in their career, they tend to hop around a little bit, change jobs, and maybe coach some patience. That this is a craft, right? This is a skill set that develops slowly over time. You can only learn so much in a given space of time. Part of it's going to be just exposure to different things that come across your way over time. So having some patience with an organization, and also knowing that organizations aren't perfect either, right? There's not a perfect company out there. So settle into a role, dedicate yourself to getting better at a craft, and those are the people that you see that are earning those six-figure wages. It takes time to get there, and building a base of knowledge, because then as a person you're becoming more valuable. I think John mentioned some of the large market areas and the incomes that are being generated by service technicians there. I was in a meeting with a group of dealers, and one of them was in Los Angeles. Those dealers are in bidding wars over technicians because there's such a demand in that area. So you realize that from an income standpoint, it follows. There's a cost of living impact to that, and if you develop your set of skills with a specific brand, you're marketable anywhere in the country. You can go anywhere in the country and get a job if you're, for example, level 4 technician with Jaguar Land Rover. You'll get hired in an instant, and you'll command a strong wage for that. So just coach that patience and that stick to itiveness with getting better at your craft.
John, he'll wrap us up.
I'll cabbage on to what you said, Brian. I think that's perfect. You want to enter the business with the mindset that I'm on a journey and there's really not a destination. Because as you enter this business, what you're learning today, you're going to relearn something tomorrow. And so really it's an evolving career that you're in a constant growth and learning mode. So even when you get into your later years, you're going to be learning new skills because the guys in the shop today who've been doing this for 20, 30 years, they're learning something brand new today. So if you have a mindset of it's a journey, not a destination, I'm just in for a learning experience for my life, you should settle in with that patience Brian spoke to.
Mm-hmm. I do want to add on to that, and it's a point that Brian made. If supply or if demand is outstripping supply, what does that mean? Are you hiring people away from different shops? Is it a competitive marketplace like that? And I see a smile on Jonathan's face, so I think you probably have an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to jump in. We very much preach don't poach employees from other stores. It's easier said than done. I can say that all day long. If a manager is under pressure in a store in Brent's position and they're short on technicians, people make short-sighted decisions sometimes in the name of thinking that's what's best in the long term. And typically what ends up happening in that situation is I'm going to match the offer and beg the person to stay. And all we do is increase wages and get into bidding wars. And that's not uncommon in markets. What we try and preach, and exactly why we invest our time in these types of events and with CareerTech, is we're far better off to all invest our dollars that we could be bidding up wages or competing with each other for the same one employee, to get people interested in going to career technical colleges, to investing in the scholarships that are there for that purpose, and to doing anything we can to encourage people to seeking, an opportunity in this career. And I'm being more honest than I probably should be on this, but it's the truth. And this goes back to my grandfather's time, my father's time. It happens with sales consultants and managers. It's not any one position. Anytime demand outstrips supply and it's that competitive, people are going to have to look sometimes at more short-sighted and short-term decision making. And we always try and preach, look at the longer term. We started with Japanese imports, and they focus on a multi-generational strategy. We try and take a similar approach from that standpoint. I want to circle back to something, if you don't mind, Robert, which is just that when you're talking about the partnership of CareerTech and the dealerships, a great example of how that's always evolving and why it's so important for that communication is a new technician comes in to CareerTech. They want to learn everything about a car. They think they're ready, right? And at one point, the manufacturers have always been great at giving the career technical institutes the formula. Here is our training programs that you can try and integrate into your programs to make sure that we're keeping people abreast of the things that the manufacturers need people to know and the dealers need people to know. And when you start looking at that, they wanted to learn everything. They wanted to learn the diesel, the transmission, the engine, the electrical. Well, what is really needed most today is we need people that can come and start on a lube rack immediately day one, do a good tire rotation, do a good quick electrical diagnostic, and then we can get them into the more detailed programs on the manufacturer side. And it's not that we don't want them to have a surface level understanding, but they don't need to go quite as deep as what they did. And Lee Dow, specifically at Moore Norman, he took that approach at Moore Norman, worked with the manufacturers, the dealers, his instructors and students, and found a way to shore up a lot of those quick maintenance items that we need right now that can help right now and generate them a great paycheck and us great revenue, and allowed us the opportunity to continue working with our manufacturers and people like John Tostanowski to get them into the Ford asset training program and be able to push them further in their career. And that's why partnerships with the OEMs and dealers on both sides is so important and why events like this are so great.
So knowing the basics. And everyone else feel that way? Is that agreed? I see some nodding heads. Good. Well,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, John, we just have about 5 minutes left, and I'm going to start off with you, John Hill. And this is the one where we get to be sages and throw out some good advice. What would your advice be if you got to give it to your 16-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
pursue your passion. If you find your passion in automotive, or if you find your passion in electricity, for example, or in computers where you've got autonomy and things coming, it's a perfect fit for this industry. But make sure you love what you're doing. Don't do it because we're offering big money, because you'll find yourself unhappy regardless. So if you're passionate about it and this is what you love, you'll make the money. But if you're not happy, you won't.
All right, Brian, lay some wisdom on us.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'll echo what I talked about a little bit before is that do something that interests you, right? That you want to go home and talk about, something that is a passion that that you enjoy, because otherwise it's just work, and it's no fun. So there has to be some level of interest and enjoyment with what you do. The other thing I would encourage everybody getting into this business to do is find a mentor. Find somebody that you can connect with that has had a successful career, that's willing to share, that's willing to listen, that can talk you off a ledge when you have a really rough day, and give you some good advice and keep you on a good path, because everybody has days like that, right? I had one just the other day. So engage with good people around you and surround yourself with good people.
Well, Brent, if my math is right, you started into the industry at 19. So what does the 42-year-old Brent know that the 19-year-old Brent didn't know?
There's a lot of that stuff, but the thing I would always say, and it's something my grandfather told me a long time ago, and it's exactly what these other gentlemen are saying is, find a mentor, have someone to look up to, set yourself goals. And then, like what my grandfather always told me was, chase the career, not the money. If you chase the career, the money will always come. He always used to tell me that you can make as much money as you want picking up trash, as long as you're passionate about picking up trash, So just chase the career. Like everyone says, find something you like to do and just be passionate about it, and everything else will always come together.
So Kristen, what's your experiences? What advice would you give to the 16-year-old you?
Oh goodness, there's tons of advice. But honestly, as a female in the industry, so I'm just going to speak to that for 1 minute. There's a place and a space for women in this industry. And I think it's really important. Thank you for having me today to represent the females in the industry. But, you don't have to necessarily be a technician. You just have to have a love and a passion like everybody's talking about, and you really can find your own place. So.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. So, Mr. Tostanowski, let's throw some wisdom our way.
So real quick to mirror Kristen's comments, there's a lot of women entering the workforce as technicians nowadays. We actually just did an event in Oklahoma. It's on our New Ford Tech Facebook page. There's a video with one of our great technicians there, and she's been rocking and rolling. So we're seeing more of that. It's a really good thing. Keeps us guys on our toes, and I like it. What I would say, advice for 16-year-old me, well, I'll be the first to admit, I'm 32 years old, so 16 years old was 16 years ago. I'd say the first thing is save your lunch money and buy stocks. I was spending my lunch money back then. But realistically, what I would tell a 16-year-old is get started early. A lot of shops, dealerships, independent shops, they're hiring at 16, 17 years old now. That stigma of being, having to be 18 to work, it's been broken. Take a job in a dealer, do it. Get started early, because that's chasing the career, as I think we lamented earlier. Chase the career. If you get started early, the money's going to come to you before you know it. And by the way, getting started early, that means that, if you get started at 16, 17 years old, you're working. Guess what? You've got money. I know your friends don't. So, having money gives you the ability to have nice things, and having nice things gives you the ability to elevate your lifestyle. right? So get started early. If one shop says, I'm not hiring right now, go to the next one. Don't be afraid to get in your car and drive around. That's what I did. I got in my 1995 Chevy Blazer that could barely run. And I drove from store to store to store looking for a dealership that would hire me. And I found one. And I swept floors, right? So, I mean, I think that's a great way to get started. And it's just get started early. Don't wait. There's a lot of opportunities for you to work every Saturday. And guess what? Hard work always pays off.
Good point, John. So Jonathan Fowler, finish us up here.
I love working with John Tostanowski. I could listen to that guy for hours. And John, I love the new glasses. I don't think I've seen those on you before. What I'm not going to say is turn on, tune in, and drop out. I think that was a phrase back in the day. Don't do that. Enroll in CareerTech. So my 16-year-old advice, I would have to say, I wear my emotion on my sleeve. If I'm in a good mood, you can tell it. If I'm not, you can tell it. I've never been the most patient of a person, and I have always talked way too much. So I would say, with that being said, try and control your emotions, try and be patient, and try and be a great listener. And I couldn't, Brian really nailed it. Find a mentor. I'm so fortunate that I've had so many mentors in my career that have talked me off the ledge on a bad day. That did convince me to keep with it, that reined me in when maybe I was getting too emotional about something or not listening enough, and really set me straight. And that's exactly what I needed. And at the time, I may not have always understood those moments. And in hindsight, I understand them so much better today. And I'm so thankful for those mentors that I had. And I'm thankful to have had so many. So Brian, I think, is giving great advice. Find someone you trust, find people that you get along with, and try and be patient and stick with the process and just keep a good attitude about it. It's really just echoing what everybody said. There's been a lot of great feedback to echo.
Yeah. And Jonathan, thank you. I also want to point out the chat. I've been following it. And I think Jeff Huffman just made a great point, which I've heard throughout this hour, is that there are plenty of different positions at the dealership too, whatever your wants are, whatever your needs are. So I want to thank everyone here for their insights. They were all valuable. I've truly enjoyed this hour talking to you. Now, for our viewers, if anything we said here today sparked an interest, do not hesitate to contact me or any of our panelists. And I promise you, if we don't know the answer, we will be sure to find out someone who does. Also, you can look for this entire discussion on our Oklahoma CareerTech YouTube channel in the coming days. So I want to thank everyone for watching today. I want to thank everyone for participating today. And for all the Oklahomans, I wish you a safe afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.